Hey there, cats and kittens, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of The MonkeyBoy Presents the DC Comics Superhero Collection by Eaglemoss, and today I'm happy to bring you issue number 104 in the series, The Mad Hatter. And yes, I realize the cover of the magazine says Jervis Tetch, but this was due only to a copyright that Disney Corporation has over the name Mad Hatter, so DC Comics had to label the magazine Jervis Tetch, similar to how they had to label Shazam's cover as Shazam and not Captain Marvel, which is his proper name, although they've since retconned that with the New 52 reboot. Anyway, before I go off on that tangent, the Mad Hatter is, of course, one of Batman's oldest foes. He is not so much a physical foe as he is a psychological one. He uses mind control and all sorts of devious tricks to foil the Dark Knight. If you are familiar with the character, chances are you know him from his very first live-action appearance outside of the comic books in the 1960s live-action show starring Adam West, where he employed a number of different trick hats. He went on to appear about 30 years later in the Batman the Animated Series, where he was voiced by brilliant actor Roddy McDowall. The character also underwent a slight makeover for the 4th season of the animated series, which was retitled The New Adventures of Batman. More recently, he was animated in Batman the Brave and the Bold as the Silver Age interpretation of the character, since there has been more than one version of Jervis Tetch, which the magazine does touch upon. He has also been featured in all 3 of the Batman Arkham video games, first as a collectible profile in Batman Arkham Asylum, and went on to be a featured villain as a side quest mission in both Batman Arkham City and Arkham Origins. For those of you unfamiliar with Jervis Tetch, also known as the Mad Hatter, well, that of course is why we have the magazine, which will tell you everything you need to know about one of Batman's most mentally challenging foes. And then we'll take a look at the figure itself, covering the good, the bad, and the ugly. One of my personal favorite characters in all of Batman's Rogues Gallery, and unfortunately, one of the okay figures in this collection. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy issue number 104 of the DC Comics Superhero Collection by Eaglemoss, Mad Hatter. First up, the character section. Discover that as a young man, Jervis Tetch became obsessed with Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, and came to believe that he was, in fact, the unhinged Mad Hatter in the flesh. The diminutive Tetch was also a skilled research scientist and hypnotist who used his amazing talents to create a series of oversized hats that concealed state-of-the-art weaponry and technology that was designed to mesmerize his victims. Adopting the identity of the Mad Hatter, he gleefully embarked on a life of crime, coming up against the Dark Knight on more than one occasion. Tetch, as the Mad Hatter, retreated deeper and deeper into his fantasy world of Wonderland, while at the same time perpetuating crimes in Gotham City that were themed around hats. On one Halloween, he began to kidnap runaways from around Gotham City, drug them, and then force them to take part in bizarre parties. One of the teenagers he decided to kidnap was not a runaway, however. It was the niece of Police Commissioner James Gordon. The Mad Hatter decided that Barbara Gordon was the perfect Alice, dressed her in the part, and it was only thanks to the efforts of the Dark Knight himself that the Mad Hatter was eventually caught and sent to Arkham Asylum. The original Mad Hatter eventually escaped, killed his rival, and continued on his quest to collect Batman's cowl to make it a part of his collection. In addition to the Batman, the Mad Hatter has also faced Robin the Boy Wonder, Batman's sidekick, when the teenager set off on one of his solo adventures. Jervis gained his freedom once again after the villain Bane broke him out of Arkham Asylum during the event known as Nightfall, and after eluding the Dark Knight for a while, decided to track down his long-lost collection of hats after an earthquake rocked most of Gotham City and it was declared a no-man's land. After law and order was finally restored to Gotham City, the Mad Hatter tried to act as a legitimate businessman by opening a number of coffee shops across Gotham, but he was secretly drugging the GCPD so that he could use the police force as his own private army. He was eventually apprehended, sent to Arkham Asylum, but soon escaped yet again, this time kidnapping his psychiatrist, a man named Dr. Yorks. The last couple pages bring us up to speed with the character, at least at the time of this publication. Mad Hatter was eventually approached by the villain known as Catman and asked to join a secret organization known as the Secret Six. He joined this band of mercenaries and accompanied them on a number of different missions, growing very close to teammate Ragdoll. Jervis felt that he had finally found his true place in the world and was overcome with joy, only to be betrayed by Ragdoll, who felt that there was only room on the team for one dandy freak. Without hesitation, the evil Ragdoll shoved Jervis off the edge of a cliff, hoping to eliminate the competition. Tetch has since been linked with Gotham's #1 arms dealer, the Penguin, as a part of the Top Hat gang, and has also done work for the nefarious gang leader of Gotham, Black Mask. Next, we look at a couple of Mad Hatter's classic stories. First, we take a look at Batman Madness. This story takes place during the first year of Bruce Wayne's life as Batman, and we learn that the villain known as Mad Hatter is kidnapping runaways on the night of Halloween so that he can brainwash them into becoming characters in his own twisted version of Lewis Carroll's Wonderland. It's also discovered that after an argument with her adoptive father, Commissioner Gordon, his niece, Barbara, runs out of the house only to be apprehended by the Mad Hatter, who decides that she would make the perfect Alice for his recreation of Wonderland. We also have Detective Comics, Mimsy Were the Borogoves. After escaping from Arkham Asylum yet again, he kidnaps his psychiatrist, Dr. Yorks, and injects him with a serum that was created by Dr. Kirk Langstrom, also known as the Man-Bat. The serum changes the psychiatrist into what the Mad Hatter dubs the Jabberwock, and this creature threatens to lay waste to all of Gotham City. Over the course of the story, it's revealed that the Mad Hatter has injected his psychiatrist with this serum so that his doctor can understand what true madness is like and hopefully find a cure for Jervis Tetch. It's a story that actually makes you look at the Mad Hatter with a little bit of sympathy and compassion for his condition. The Mad Hatter's Friends and Foes section features the imposter's second Mad Hatter, also known as the Hat Man, his arch-nemesis, the Batman, and the daughter of Commissioner James Gordon, Barbara Gordon, who went on to be known as Batgirl. Lastly, the iconography section looks at some of the other nursery rhyme-themed villains in the DCU. Like the man named Dr. Aesop, who turned the fables of Greek philosophers into the blueprints for crime and templates for scathing punishments against his rivals, until he was eventually stopped by Catwoman. Peter Merkel Jr., a triple-jointed contortionist who used his malleable form to commit crimes, as the Ragdoll. And finally, another one of Gotham City's most twisted villains, Humphrey Dumpler, also known as Humpty Dumpty, who is obsessed with dismantling and fixing people. And here we have Mad Hatter, also known as Jervis Tetch. A nice figure. I think I like the figure more than I should, just because I'm such a big fan of this character from the comic books and the animated series and the video games lately. He's really well portrayed, a creepy guy. He's not a physically imposing kind of threat. He is a mentally challenging threat. The figure is pretty nice for the most part. The good outweighs the bad, although there are some major issues I have with him, which of course I'll talk more about in the next section. But you can see, the sculpt is really nice on this guy. The hat is well done. I like how it's sort of askew. It looks crooked and weird, like it's out of Wonderland. How both of his hands have his pinkies extended. It's a sort of a nice little touch. The fact that he's tipping his top hat with the right hand, his left hand is holding a cup of tea, which actually does have some tea inside, a nice little detail. Yeah, I mean, overall, he's very, very good. He's not outstanding, he's not perfect at all. One of the major issues you might see right away, he really doesn't have a right eye. He sort of doesn't have it. Left eye big and blue and really well done. Right eye non-existent. I guess he's supposed to look as though he's winking, but it just looks weird. That's one of the major issues I have, which of course I'll talk about more in the next section, along with the good and the bad and the ugly in just a second. Jervis Tetch, aka the Mad Hatter, stands atop the classic DC logo, and the underside of the base features his name and serial number. And so you can compare, here he is next to the Dark Knight Batman, and in a big group shot with every other member of Batman's Rogues Gallery that Eaglemoss has produced so far. Mad Hatter, also known as Jervis Tetch, is a fantastic character, but just an okay figure, unfortunately. I really think there were some missed opportunities here. While he's not the worst figure ever made, he's definitely not the best, and the good and the bad are pretty equally measured on this figure. We'll start with the good. I really like the pose on the character, the scale is nice, the sculpting, shadowing, shading, the paint job, the color palette, it's very clean, and I like the colors for the most part that they went with, and the accessories he has, the hat, the cup of tea, the oversized bow tie, really nice flourishes. You can see, as I mentioned, the scale is really accurate. He's only slightly taller than the Penguin, which is as it should be. He is a very small character. Starting with the base of the figure, his shoes are awesome. They are these black loafers, but they're not a glossy black. They look dirty and smudged, as though he hasn't taken care of them in quite some time. Love the fact that you can see his socks, and that they are this red and white sort of striped pattern. It breaks up the character. It helps the pants and the shoes stand out a little bit more too. Speaking of the pants, also very nicely painted and sculpted, baggy in some areas, wrinkled a little bit, not super tight. They look like trousers should. The belt and the buckle are also very well detailed. His trench coat is also cool. I like the shade of green on it. Folds and wrinkles, it looks like it's blowing on him, almost as though he's in motion. I like the vest he wears as well. It almost looks like tweed. I think it could have been just a little bit more detailed, but it is nice. The oversized bow tie is really cool. It looks good. It's almost comical. I have a minor nitpick, which I'll talk about in the bad section, but overall I do like it a lot. Both of his hands are nicely detailed too. His left hand is outstretched. I love the fact that you can see the white cuff of the undershirt that he's wearing, and then of course the white gloved hand holding the cup of tea. The right hand is also nicely detailed. Again, you can see the cuff of the shirt, and then the glove, which is tipping his hat. I also like the fact that both of his pinkies on the left and right hand are extended, as though it's a sort of British proper thing to do. The hat is, for the most part, nice. It's slightly askew. It looks very Wonderlandy in that there are really no right angles on it. The green and the red contrast nicely with each other. He even has the little note card on the side of the hat, although I do have some issues with that, which I'll talk about here shortly. Finally, the head sculpt is okay. I like that he has that sort of wicked smile on his face. His left eye is very nicely detailed, big and blue, almost menacing. The ears are big and almost silly, clownish, which is appropriate. His hair is this orangey, reddish sort of color, unkept and spiky, great textures and coloring all through there. It's an okay head sculpt, and I'm sure you can see one of the major issues I have with it. The head sculpt is just okay on this guy. Speaking of the next section, it's on to the bad, which is longer than I wanted it to be. I really have problems with the head sculpt, especially the fact that he's missing an eye. The hat, well, the hat is nicely sculpted, the note card is totally wrong, and just some things with the paint, like his bow tie and his pants, I feel were missed opportunities. We'll start with the head sculpt. As I mentioned, I think the fact that he has no right eye whatsoever is really kind of awful, especially when you're looking at it from the other side of the figure. They could have at least drawn some sort of line on there to give the impression that his eye is closed and that he's winking. There's absolutely nothing there. It looks like an empty cavity. It's sort of weird. The note card in the hat is way too small. No, mine is not broken. No, this is not a defect. I have done a little bit of research into this, and it is wrong. It should be almost as large as the hat, if not larger, and you should be able to read what it says. It should say 10/6 or something like that on the side of that card. It's just wrong, unfortunately. Finally, just some paint issues, nitpicks on my part here. I wish that his pants were sort of a checkered pattern, and the bow tie, while I do like it overall, I sort of wish it was polka dotted, you know, white and red, just like his socks are. I like it as it is, but it just feels like a missed opportunity. Finally, the ugly. The big thing to watch out for is that outstretched left hand. You want to check for the cup of tea and the pinky on that hand. Make sure they're not broken if you have the ability to before you purchase. Overall, Mad Hatter is just okay, which is so unfortunate because I love this villain, love all the Batman villains, but especially the psychological ones, the non-physically threatening ones. They seem to be the most dangerous, and Jervis definitely is. I just wish he was a little more accurate for this figure. He looks good from a distance, and from the right angle, it's always cool to have him staring down the dynamic duo, but he just feels a little bit drab in the paint department. Just some little things like the polka dotted bow tie I really think could have made it better, and a little more detail on the head sculpt and a more accurate head sculpt. But that being said, he is cool to have with all of the other Arkham Asylum inmates that have been released so far. He looks great with the group, and if you're a fan of Batman, of his rogues gallery, I think you should pick this figure up. However, he is not for everyone. If you are only vaguely aware of this character, there are other figures in the line you want, get them first and come back to this guy. And I hope you have enjoyed this review of the Mad Hatter, also known as Jervis Tetch. One of my favorites, people, really it is. I just wish he looked a little bit better, especially since this series is, well, it's winding down, unfortunately. Which, of course, brings us to the fact that I'd like you to stay tuned for a quick teaser trailer of the next figure in this line, issue number 105. It's a hero. We've done a few villains here, so it's time to go back into the superhero realm. And it is a member of a team we have not really explored before, known as the Doom Patrol. Please stay tuned for that quick teaser. As always, I am your host, the Monkey Boy, aka J to his friends. Thanks for watching.